I've got my settlement statements right here. I want to talk about this deal and show you what happened and how it made an impact on my life. All right, guys, this is the closing disclosures. So this is actually called a HUD statement. This is what they used to use. And then they went to this more confusing form called a settlement statement or closing disclosure. I don't know why they did that, but here's the deal. This is the house. The contract sales price on the house was $377,900. Okay, and this is schoolhouse. I took the full address just because I don't want somebody trying to go by or disturb these people or anything else like that. Now I bought this property. Let's just look here in 2012. Okay, in 2012 I bought that property. Okay, I bought it for $377,900. Now, one of the other cool things is my wife and I are both agents. She's a broker. So out of that, she also got a 3% commission. So I'm going to take that off the price here because she got that money. So it's less that we're into the house. So let's just take a quick look here. So if we go 377,900, she got a 3% commission. So there was 11,337. So let's subtract that from 377,900. So I was into the house 3,656. So $366,563 is how much I was in to this house when I bought the property in 2012. Now, I lived in this property for 10 years. And today, well, last night, I just signed this closing disclosure. And it has been almost a year exact, or almost 10 years exactly. Let's just see here. What date was this? This is February and this is June. So it's like off only by like 3 months. So almost 10 years, just a little over 10 years. And I want to show you something here. This is schoolhouse. This is when I sold it. And I want to call out this sales price, okay? The sales price in this is $1,250,000 is what I sold this house for. So what does that look like? Well, let's grab our handy dandy calculator out here. So basically this is a gross profit because, you know, you got to take into consideration that there's a few things that we did to the property. So let's talk about that. That's $872,000. Okay, in gains on that property. Now, there are some things that we did. We did some remodeling in the basement. We did some landscaping. I mean, I don't know. I need to get with my accountant and figure out exactly what we spent. But let's just even say we spent, I don't know, $200,000 on it. I'm not sure, but let's just call it $200,000. So then we'll say that it's like $672,000 just for numbers sake, okay? And that $672,000 is profit. So if we said, hey, that's interesting, we made $672,000 off $366,000. What is my return on this property? Well, let's talk about it. What I'm going to do is annualize the return. So if you take $672,000, I'm going to divide that by 10. So that means each year I was getting $67,200 of increased gain by living in the property. And that's above and beyond the work that was done to the property. So I basically got paid $67,200 for the pleasure of living in this property. So if I divide that by 366,563, basically I was getting an 18.33% return over 10 years on this. But here's the cool thing. I could have gotten a loan for this and it wouldn't have been my money, so my rate of return would be even higher than that because my rate of return would only be on the money I put into this. So maybe I put $50,000 or $60,000 into this. Let's say you put $60,000 down and you got a loan for the rest. Well, what does that look like? Well, 672,000 divided by 10, divided by 60,000, that would put you at 93% return on your money. Why is that? Because you're basically getting $67,000 a year, and you only put 60 into it, or maybe it was 57,000, and you're basically getting almost doubling your money every single year by having this house. Now, I want to be clear. This was a good timing in the market. We hit it right. Okay, so I bought a house prior to this. The property was in the parade of homes. They originally had the property for like $1.4 million. They ended up not selling the house. The bank foreclosed. I ended up buying the property somewhere around $500,000, and I thought I'd be able to sell that for $1 million a few years later. Well, it turns out I sold it for like $550,000 and broke even on it. So I don't want to give the impression this is always the case, but I can show you over time the benefits of owning real estate. Okay, this is economic research data. Wanted to show you some things here. This is the average sales price of houses in the United States. So it starts all the way back here in 1963, and we've got all the way up to 2021. Or 2022 Q1 we've got as well. So here's what I think is really interesting, guys. And I'm going to jump to the whiteboard. Okay. Let's say the lowest point in the market, let's see, actually 2006, 2007, 2008. 2009, it looks like. 2009 was the lowest point in the market if you talk on average. And when did I buy this property? I bought this property in 2012. So I didn't buy this property at the low. I bought this property when things came up a little bit. So it's not like I had perfect timing. And I can tell you this, guys. I almost didn't buy this property because I was afraid we were overpaying for the property. I think I wanted to be in around $350,000, and they wouldn't budge on the price. It was a bank-owned property, and I think we went up, but I did that reluctantly and concerned, because if you lived through that 2008, 2009, you saw property values go down drastically, and so I just didn't know, is the bottom here? Is this really the bottom, or is it going to get worse? So let's jump back to our graph here. Okay, so Q1 2009, that's really the low. And then if you look at Q1 2022, that is going to be the high. So if we're looking here, 2012, I bought it in Q1 2012. So 278 was the median sales price, for the area. And if you look at what it is right now, it is approximately 507, okay? So you've almost doubled, anywhere in the United States, you've almost doubled what you paid for the property if you held that property for the last 10 years. Now, you may be saying, well, Ryan, why did your property go up so much? Well, I was in an area where values were going up steadily. I think I also bought a really good deal when I bought it, and we spent some money fixing it up. So we bought a good deal, and we sold it at a good time in the market. Now, does that always work out? Well, no, it doesn't. But what I want to make sure that you realize is real estate goes up. Let's jump to our graph here. So as you can see, real estate values, all they do, they go up. Now, is there some peaks? Is there some valleys? Yeah. But if you look at like Q1 of 2007, which was the old high of the market, $322,000. And if you look at the low, $257,000, okay? So what's the difference between that? Let's talk about this. Okay, so 322,000 minus 257, $65,000 is what it went down. And so if you take 65 divided by 322, you basically saw a 20% decrease in the worst financial correction. So have you ever seen that 20% number anywhere else? Lots of times lenders want you to put down 20%. I wonder why. Probably because they've looked at these graphs and said, you know what? Worst case scenario we see is a 20% reduction. Now, that's pretty interesting. But the question that I've got is, how fast could that reduction have actually recovered? So let's say I bought it here at $322,000, and that was Q1 2007. You know, worst possible time to buy the house. Okay, I gotcha. And then let's say the house values go down to 257. How long did it take to get back up to that same level? And you can see there it's Q2 of 2013. Your house prices were back to 320. So basically, for 6 years, if you held that property for 6 years, bought it here, it went down, comes back up, in a 6-year period, you're going to see that the greatest real estate change, correction, whatever you want to call it, was back to normal after 6 years, okay? So what I say is look at the market in 10-year increments, okay? So if we're looking at things at 10-year increments, what's gonna happen? Well, we know that if I would have bought that house, it could have more than doubled, which in my case, it went even more than that. But let's just kind of take these 10-year periods here. So let's just take, okay, 2020, the average price of the property, Q2 2020, Q2 2020, the average price of the home is $374,500. And this is nationwide. Obviously, real estate is going to be localized, but it gives you an idea. So let's say you bought that property in 2010, $274,000. That property value went up $100,000, okay? Now, the other interesting thing when you look at this like as your own house is what's called the amortization. Most people don't think about this, but let's bring up an amortization schedule so we can talk a little bit about this. So in this example, let's just say you bought the house for $374,000. Let's say you put 3% down on the property. So 374 times 0.03, you put $11,000 down. So let's say you got a loan for, $362,000. Okay, and it's a 30-year loan. And what was the average interest rate in 4.69%. Okay, 4.69. Let's calculate this up. And so let's take a look. Show amortization schedule. So here's the deal. If your rate was that and you own the property for 10 years, the other interesting thing that happens is, so we'll go from 2020 at 10 years, we're gonna go to 2032. Well, let me explain first, because a lot of people don't understand this. This is the payment that you pay. At the beginning of the loan, most of the payment goes towards interest. Okay, it's not like half goes towards interest, half goes towards principal. Most people don't understand this. This is a big deal. So $461 goes towards principal and $1,417 goes towards interest. But if you get down to the last year, it flip-flops, okay? So now you've got $1,800, $1,872 going towards principal and $732 going towards interest, okay? That's what an amortization schedule does. It's a great way that banks can make more money. That's really what this is about. The opposite of this is called simple interest, if that's something you're interested in. So 2022, we're gonna fast forward here to 2032. What I wanna show you here is this, $288,000. That is your new principal balance. So let's say you bought the property for $274,000 10 years earlier, so 2010. 274 times 3% down is about $8,000. So we're gonna say you got a loan for $265,000. Okay, average interest rate in that year was about 4.69% is what it looks like for the year 2010. So we're just gonna roll with that. So we're gonna go up 10 years and we're gonna go to 2032. And we're gonna say, how much do you currently, would you owe on the property if you would have done that? And we'll just go mid-year. You would owe about $265,000. You put about $10,000 down, $9,000 down, 30-year loan. The interest rate is average interest rates for what was going on in 2010. And if we fast forward ourselves 10 years on this amortization schedule, well, first let's explain what an amortization schedule is. There's simple interest and then there's amortized. So what happens here is your payment of $1,372, very little of it goes towards principal, like $337, and $1,000 goes towards interest in the first year, and it gets a little better every single month. In the last year, the majority of the payment, 30 years later, is actually going towards principal, $1,367 towards principal and $5 towards interest to actually pay off your loan. And this column right here, far to the right, is actually how much it is going down. So it starts at 264, and you can see it takes a while in that first year, June to June. Let's just look at that. You go from 264 to 260. So you pay down $4,000. But look at this. If you go to that last year and we go May to May, you go from 16,000 down to 0. So you more than 3 or 4 times pay off what you were in the early stages. Okay, so let's say that you got a loan for $265,000. You purchased it for $274 in 2010. We know 10 years later, values were somewhere around $374, so an increase about $100,000, which actually, let's talk about what that increase is. $100,000 divided by 274, that's a 36% increase. Okay, and if we divide that by 10, it's about a 3.6% increase year over year, okay? But that doesn't include something really important here, and that's the amortization schedule. So this amortization schedule, basically what people don't realize is in the beginning, the majority of your payment is going towards interest and very little is going towards principal, okay? So then if I fast forward down here to the very last year, the majority of your payment is going towards interest and very little is going towards principal, and you owe very little, and in year 30 you end up paying the property off. But here's the kicker. Most people don't realize this. The average person stays in their house 5 years or less, and so you're really not getting the momentum when it comes to paying down that loan because you're not there long enough to actually do it, and so the amortization is working in the bank's favor rather than yours. Now, there does become a tipping point in this, but let's just say you owe that $265,000 and 10 years later, so let's go 2032. Come on, there we go. You owe $214,000. So just by making your regular monthly payment, you're at $214,000, which gives you $60,000 more in equity. So now you've got $160,000, and look what happens here, guys. 160 divided by 10 divided by 274. That puts your return at 6% return. But honestly, what you really are getting a return of is the money you put into it. So you put $9,000 into this, okay? $9,000 is what you put down, and you're getting $160,000 in divided by 10 divided by 9,000. You're getting a 170% return on your money. So once we do that, you owe about $204,000. So you've got about $60,000 in payments. You've got about $100,000 that you've got from equity with appreciation. So you've got $160,000 of gain that you've had from this property. So if we look at that and we divide that by 10 years, you're at $16,000 a year is basically what it's increasing. Well, man, that sounds a lot better to me than actually paying rent. Well, 16,000 divided by how much down payment did I put in? Well, I put $9,000, okay? So if I take $9,000 divided by 16,000, which I'm getting on an annual basis, that gives me a 56% return on my money every year. I'm getting a 56.25% return on my money. Now, you may say, well, Ryan, you're technically paying this $60,000. And I'm like, but you're technically living in the property and you'd be paying to live somewhere anyway. But if you really want to get technical and you really want to cry about it, okay, let's see what it would look like if you didn't include this. And all we're going to include is the appreciation. So the appreciation alone, okay? So we're saying it's $10,000 a year for 10 years. You put in $9,000. So you go $9,000 $9,000 divided by $10,000 means you're having a 90% 90% ROI over a 10-year period. I'm sorry, on this one, it was actually 1.56 is really what your return is. 1.56, 156% return. Now, I'm just taking a random time in the market. I'm taking a 2010. Now, do you want to take, let's just say, what if you bought in the worst time of the market? And let's see, well, we're probably there. Let's just say you bought at the worst time of the market and you sold it 10 years later. Let's take a look and see what that would actually do to you. Okay, when was the absolute worst time to buy? You'll see before that big crash, it was 2007. You can see the rates, it keeps going up here. Some think it may come down, others think it's not going to. But let's just say you bought it in 2007. Okay, so 2007, you bought a property for $322,000. Okay, and then let's hold it for 10 years. 2017, that property is worth $374,000. Okay, the gain on that is basically $62,000. Okay, we've got a gain of $62,000, right? So the question is if we bought it for $322,000, this is 2017, how much money did we put down? Well, most people are putting about 3% down on the property, so 0.03. So you're putting down $9,663. We're just going to call it $10,000 is what you put in the property, okay? So $10,000 is what you put into it. You're getting $62,000 over a 10-year period, so you're getting $6,200 per year. So if I take $10,000 divided by 6,200, whoops, wrong way. 6,200 divided by 10,000 is going to give me a 62% return on my money. So basically, from 27, if I would have bought the property in the worst time to buy the property and sold it 10 years later, I would have gotten a 62% increase on my down payment. As an ROI, I'd be getting 62% because I'm basically making $6,200. Now, I don't get that until I actually sell the property. But wait, it actually gets better. Let's jump over to an amortization schedule and let's talk a little bit about this because you're also making payments on the loan, but you've got to pay to live somewhere anyway. So this is kind of interesting. So let's say it's $322,000. You put $10,000 down, we said, so we're going to call this $312,000. 30-year loan, and we're going to say, what's the average interest rate? In 2007, part of my typos and all that stuff. Okay, we're going to say 6.34%. Average 30-year rate, 6.34. Okay, so we're going to come back over here and say this was 6.34. Calculate that one up, and then let's show the amortization schedule. Now, this is an amortized schedule. This is not simple interest. There's a big difference, and most people do not know the difference about it, okay? What it basically means is your payment of $1,900, the majority of that is actually going to interest, $1,648, and $209 is going towards principal. That starts in the first month that you make your payment. Now, on the last payment that you actually make, 30 years later, of that $1,900 payment, $10 goes towards the principal, or $10 goes towards interest, and $1,929 goes towards interest. It flip-flops, it's inverses. But the reason why this is a dirty little trick, well, I don't know if it's a dirty trick, but most people only stay in their house for 5 years, so they never get to that tipping point where it actually starts to really get a lot more going towards principal. But let's just say that you had this and we had it for 10 years, so we're gonna go to 32 because that's 10 years after what we're saying here, 32. Owed on the property would be $262,000. Okay, $262,000 is owed on the property. So if you look at it this way, $262,000 subtract $374 That's $112,000 if you take your equity plus what you've paid down. I'm looking for another colored marker here, guys. $112,000, okay? If I divide that by 10, we're talking $12,000 a year. Well, we'll just call it 11.2 a year, okay? 11.2 a year. Well, I only put down, we said $10,000 on the property. So if I put $10,000 down, I'm getting back $11,000. That's 110% return on the $10,000 I put down. If I bought this piece of real estate in the highest time and I sold it 10 years later, I had 110% return on the money that I put into this property. This is why real estate really makes sense, guys. And I want to jump back over. Yes, we've seen ups. Yes, we've seen downs. The biggest correction we've seen here has been 20%. As long as you can make that payment, you're in good shape. And then you can see it's taken a run straight up like we've been experiencing here. So you're gonna say, okay, Ryan, you bought your house at a good time, not the best time, but at a pretty good time. And you're selling it at a really good time. I'll give you that. But you're gonna say, well, Ryan, where are you gonna move? And the answer is, I'm gonna move into another house. Well, aren't you buying that house at the high side of the market? And the answer is yes. So then what did this increase really do for you? Well, I've got extra money because of that. I am spending more on the next house that I'm going into. So you're saying, well, what happens? Well, here's the thing that most people don't realize. You've got to get into real estate and you've got to get into it pretty regularly. So let's just say I bought a house a year. So I'm going to buy a house every single year. And kind of like my house, if I would have bought another house, what would that look like? So let's just say I bought my house, what do we say, 377 with commissions off. Let's just call it a cool $350,000, okay? I bought my house for that. Now, what if I would have the next year, so this was in what year, 2012. So 2012, let's see, 2012, average median price was $294,500, okay? Let's say that I bought another house a year later. The average price then was $324,000. It's in 2013. And let's say I bought another house in 2014, and the average price in 2014 was $369,000. Okay? So these house prices are going up on an annual basis. $294,000. Okay, it's going up $30K. 30 divided by 294. So that's a 10% increase that year. And then if we take 369 minus 324, it's a $45,000 increase, which 45 divided by 324 is a 13.8% increase of what we're seeing just in the values of those properties over time. The point that I'm really trying to get here, guys, is buying a house for yourself is a great thing. But what if I would have bought a house every single year, and I did buy a lot of houses, but I regret not buying more houses during 2012, 2013, 2014, because even if the house price went up, so it went up 10 grand, so I bought this one for 350, and I'm buying this one for 385, and this went up 13, so what's 13 on 385? That's another 50 grand. I bought this one for 400 plus $435,000, okay? So let's just say at the time I bought my house, I said, I'm gonna buy a house every single year, okay? And yes, the price of the house is going up. They're getting more expensive over the years. So the same house I bought for $350,000, I'm now buying for $435,000. Well, let's say these were the same house as what I bought, okay? Now, what if I sold all three of those properties today and I got $1.25 million for each property. So I sold this one, I sold this one, I sold this one, okay? So what does that equal? Well, it equals $3,750,000, okay? That's what that equals. $3,750,000 is what I'm selling those 3 properties for. Now, we also have the amortization on each one of these. We're going to say it's 10 years later. So let's just give us, okay, so we're just going to give it 350,000. We're going to use the 6%, but rates actually come down here in a little bit. So now what do I owe on this property? Well, let's go 32. Come mid-year. I owe $295,000 on that first property, okay? So I've got some more, 295 is what I owe. So then the next year, that was, let's see, actually I've got the wrong rate. What was mortgage rate in 2012? Mortgage rate in 2012 was 3.66. So we're gonna say 3.66. Calculate. Okay, that's what it was. So I'm into it 350, and I put a down payment down, but I'm not even taking that into the equation. We're going to come to 32. We're getting there, guys. I owe $273,000 on that property. And then in 2013, I bought another property. I put tenants in there. My tenants have been paying that payment. Let's say I didn't make any money on it. I just paid the payment, paid the expenses. I didn't make any money on it. So then interest rates went up to 3.98%. Let's calculate that one up. And 10 years later, we would be, let's see here, 32. We would owe about $276,000 on that property. And let's say I bought another property in 2014. What was the average interest rates? In 2014, 4.17. So we're going to come back over here and say, whoops, 4.17. And we're going to change this price to $435,000 because we bought it for a little bit more money because values were going up. 10 years later, or let's call it 8 years later on this one, which would be 30. I'd approximately owe $365,000. Okay, let's jump to the whiteboard and do some quick math here, because this is where I think it gets really exciting, and this is what people don't understand the power in real estate actually is. So, this is what I bought it for, this is what I owe. Next year, this is what I bought it for, this is what I owe. 10 years later, so that's basically what I owe on these properties. If I just put a small down payment each time. So I owe $273,000 plus 276 plus 365. So I owe $914,000, okay? But what am I selling all 3 of these for? $3,750,000. So $3,750,000. Whoops, $3,750,000 subtract 914. I would have made $2.8 million. Guess what? I was too scared to do that. So I didn't buy a house in 2014. I didn't buy one in 2013, 2014, like this house. I don't even know what I bought in 2013 or 2014. I think it's kind of interesting. If I would have done that, I'd have $2.8 million. Now, you're going to say, Ryan, well, wait a minute. This isn't fair because you've got to live in the house. So let's back up. Let's talk about this. Okay, I buy that. We got to live in the house. So what if you said, okay, I am not going to sell the house I live in, right? I'm going to let the amortization work for me, but I am going to sell the other 2 properties. Well, what did I owe? 270 on that, let's just say. So I'm going to sell for $2.5 million. Okay. When I sell these, I owe on them 276 plus 365. So I owe $641,000. If I subtract that from the $2.5 million, then I would have $1.8 million in profit. But I'm going to pay off my 270 loan. So if I add 270, 1.5, almost $1.6 million. So basically, guys, if I would have bought the houses in 2012, 2013, 2014, they were the same houses and they were going to sell for the same amount of money, I could have sold 2 of them, paid off what I owed, and had $1.8 million in a 10-year period of time. That's what we talk about when we talk about the power of real estate and we talk about financial freedom in 10 years or less. It has a lot to do with this. But with this, I only would have bought 3 properties. That's it. Now, did I time the market right? Not perfectly. If I would have timed a little better, I could have done better. Did I time the market well? Yes, I did. That is helpful, but even if it's not to that extreme, you're still seeing these gains that are coming up and you're seeing what's happening in real estate investing. So I encourage you to look more into real estate investing. Make it a very profitable day.